Okay, so for all my fellow self-proclaimed night owls out there, the advice has always been pretty comforting, right? As long as you're following your body's natural rhythm, burning the midnight oil is just, well, it's just who you are. But what if that's not the whole story? We're going to dive into this because a major new study is challenging pretty much everything we thought we knew about going to bed late.
So, which one are you? Are you a morning lark, like up with the sun totally ready to go? Or are you a night owl, doing your best thinking while everybody else is asleep? Most of us fit into one of these camps.
And that really brings us to the big question we've all wondered about. We've been told over and over that as long as you're getting enough sleep and you're listening to your body, it doesn't really matter. But is that actually true?
To figure this out, we've got to get into the science of why we even have these preferences to begin with. And it all comes down to your body's amazing internal clock.
The fancy scientific term for this is your chronotype. You can just think of it as your biological programming. It's literally in your genes, and it's what nudges you to feel sleepy or wide awake at certain times of the day. That's what creates those lark and owl tendencies.
So, the advice has always been really simple. Work with your chronotype, not against it. If you're a night owl, lean into it. If you're a morning person, enjoy those sunrises. This was supposed to be the key to well-being.
But you know how science works. A team of researchers decided to put that exact theory to a very rigorous test. They launched this massive, long-term investigation to see if that common advice really holds up.
And when I say massive, I mean it. This study included nearly 75,000 adults. A number that big is a huge deal because it gives the findings incredible weight.
And on top of that, it wasn't just some quick survey. Nope, they followed these people for 8 full years, tracking their habits and their health outcomes. That is a serious deep dive. So how'd they do it? Well, first, they asked people, hey, are you a morning person or a night person? To figure out their chronotype. But, and this is key, they didn't just take their word for it. They used wearable trackers to see when people actually went to sleep. Then they cross-referenced all that data with official health records to look for links to mental and behavioral health.
And the results of this incredibly thorough investigation? They got published in the highly respected journal Psychiatry Research. So, what on earth did they find that's making us rethink everything?
Okay, this is where it gets really, really fascinating. The data pointed to something so specific and unexpected, they're calling it the 1 AM rule.
Let's just start with this powerful conclusion, straight from the researchers. This one sentence completely flips the old advice on its head. It suggests it's not about your personal preference at all, it's about a universal benefit.
What the researchers found was that there seems to be this hard cutoff time when it comes to protecting our mental health. It wasn't a gentle slope. The data drew a really clear line in the sand.
And here it is. That's the line. People who consistently went to bed after 1 a.m., they showed higher rates of things like depression and anxiety. That specific time, 1 in the morning, was the critical turning point.
And here is the real bombshell. This finding was true for everyone. Even the people who said, I'm a night owl, it's just how I'm built. Well, they were not protected. Their chronotype didn't give them a free pass.
Okay, so this huge study just gave us this startling 1 AM rule. But what does that actually mean for us in our daily lives? What's the practical takeaway here?
Let's just put it right next to each other. The old idea was all about personal alignment, right? You do you. But the new finding suggests something totally different. A bedtime before 1 a.m. seems to benefit everyone's mental health, no matter what their natural tendency is.
So here are the 3 big things to remember. 1. Being a natural night owl doesn't make staying up super late harmless. 2. Hitting the hay before 1 a.m. seems to act like a protective shield for your mental well-being. And 3. This rule looks like it's universal. It applies to all of us. Ultimately, this research kind of shifts the whole conversation. It suggests that when it comes to our mental health, our behavior might actually matter more than our biology. It's a really powerful idea, and, it leaves us all with one final question to think about. Is it time to start resetting your clock?
Okay, let's be real. Most of us kind of label ourselves, right? You're either a morning lark, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at sunrise, or you're a night owl who only really comes alive after dark. It feels like it's just part of who we are. But what if I told you that science is finding that this simple preference could have a huge impact on your brain? We're about to dive into the really surprising connection between when you go to sleep and your mental health. So let's get right to it. Does your body's internal clock, your chronotype, actually have a say in your mental health? Let's dig in and see what the researchers are uncovering. So I gotta ask you, which one are you? A morning person or a night person? Go ahead, think about it. And hang on to that answer because the science here might actually surprise you. So, how do we know any of this is true? Well, the evidence comes from a huge new sleep study that really dug deep into the data on our bedtimes and, what's going on in our heads. And when I say massive, I mean massive. We're talking about nearly 74,000 people. I mean, wow, this wasn't some tiny little experiment. This is a gigantic data set, which means the findings, well, they carry some serious weight. We're looking at broad, reliable patterns here. So here's how all those people broke down by their sleep preference. You've got your diehard morning people and your classic night owls, sure. But look at that huge slice in the middle. The vast majority of people, almost 48,000 of them, are actually intermediate types. They're somewhere in between. And this is so important because it means these findings are relevant to almost everyone, not just the people at the extremes. All right, so they've got all this incredible data. What happens when they actually start connecting the dots between people's sleep habits and their mental health? This is where things get really, really compelling. And here it is, the big shocker. It turns out it didn't matter one bit if you called yourself a night owl or a morning lark. The simple act of going to sleep late was linked to a higher rate of mental health disorders, like depression and anxiety, for everyone. The data is basically saying it's not about who you are, it's about what you do. And that just flips the whole lark versus owl debate completely on its head. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The study's lead author, Dr. Jamie Zeitzer, put it very bluntly. He said, the worst-case scenario is definitely the late-night people staying up late. So yeah, he's confirming that the highest risk isn't just preferring the evening, it's actually acting on it and staying up late. So naturally, this leads to the big question, why? Why does staying up late seem to be so risky, no matter what your natural preference is? Well, researchers have a leading theory on this. They call it the wee hours hypothesis. The theory is that our brains, well, they just aren't wired for making smart decisions late at night. That's when we see a spike in harmful behaviors. We're talking serious stuff like suicidal thoughts, substance use, and even just overeating. It's almost like the night creates this environment where our worst impulses can get the better of us. So if the big risk is staying up late, this kind of forces us to completely reconsider what good sleep even means. It might not be as simple as we've always thought. This finding totally challenges the common wisdom. We're always told to focus on duration. You got to get your 8 hours, right? But this new insight suggests that, especially for our mental health, the timing of your sleep could be even more important. The whole conversation is shifting from how long you sleep to when you sleep. And the study had one more really powerful finding on the flip side. It wasn't just that late nights were risky. It's that early mornings seemed to be protective. The group with the absolute best mental health outcomes? The morning larks who consistently got up with the sun, aligning their sleep with its natural cycle. So the takeaway here seems pretty clear. Our bodies are deeply connected to the rhythm of the day. And whether you feel like a lark, an owl, or you're somewhere in between, the timing of your sleep appears to be this incredibly powerful tool for your mental well-being. So the real question is, your body has a clock. Isn't it time to start listening?
All right, let's talk about sleep. Are you just tired of being tired? Sick of that war with your alarm clock every single morning? Well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down how you can finally, truly reset your sleep schedule. And it all starts with a question I know we have all asked ourselves at some point.
Right? It's this universal struggle. You know you need to go to bed. You might even want to go to bed. But when the time actually comes, boom, you're wide awake, you're scrolling on your phone, you're watching another episode, you're just staring at the ceiling. It is so frustrating. So what is actually going on here?
Well, here's the first thing you've got to understand. There is no magic pill. There's no one weird trick that's going to fix everything overnight. Taking back your sleep isn't about finding some secret hack. It's about building a simple but really effective system that works with your body's natural rhythms, not against them.
And that whole system starts right here, with one foundational, absolutely unbreakable rule. I mean it. This is the bedrock that everything else is built on. If you only take one thing away from this whole explainer, please make it this.
The entire goal, the whole point of this first rule, is to regulate your body's internal clock. You've probably heard of it as your circadian rhythm. Think of your body like a really finely tuned instrument. It craves rhythm, it craves routine, and our job is to give it a really clear, consistent one.
So how do we do that? It boils down to these 3 simple, totally non-negotiable steps. First, set a fixed bedtime you can actually hit. Second, set a fixed wake-up time. And third, and listen, this is the part that trips everyone up, you have to stick to it every single day. And yes, that means on weekends too. That consistency is exactly what trains your brain to know, okay, now it's time to be sleepy, and okay, now it's time to be awake.
Okay, I can hear you now. You're saying, dude, I go to bed at 2 a.m. You want me to go to bed at 10 p.m.? That feels impossible. And you know what? You're right. Trying to make that jump all at once is a recipe for failure. So how do we bridge that gap?
You don't take a giant leap, you just take a small step. The whole key here is gradual adjustment. Tonight, just try to go to bed 15 minutes earlier than usual. That's it. Do that for a few nights until it feels kind of normal, then shave off another 15 minutes. It's a gentle, much more sustainable way to ease your body into that new schedule without a massive shock to the system.
All right, so once you have your target time, you need to build what I like to call an on-ramp to sleep. This is your wind-down ritual. It's a sequence of actions that sends a powerful, unmistakable signal to your brain that says, hey, we're shutting things down for the night. And just look at this comparison. It's pretty night and day, right? Over on the left, you've got your wind-down stuff, reading an actual physical book, taking a warm bath, maybe some light meditation. And on the right, you have the wind-up activities, the stuff that actively blocks sleep, staring at a screen, eating a huge meal, and of course, stimulants like caffeine or nicotine. In that last hour before bed, your one job is to swap anything from the right column for something in the left column. Now, of all those sleep blockers we just mentioned, screen time is by far the sneakiest. It doesn't feel stimulating like a cup of coffee, right? But it's sending a very powerful and very wrong signal to your brain. And the reason why all comes down to one little hormone.
And that hormone is called melatonin. See, as it gets dark outside, your brain naturally starts producing melatonin. It's basically the go-to-sleep signal for your entire body. The big problem is that the specific blue light blasting out of our phones and laptops completely tricks your brain. It thinks it's still high noon. This actively suppresses melatonin production, making it so much harder to feel sleepy. So the bottom line is brutally simple. Put the phone away at least an hour before bed.
Okay, you've got your schedule. You've got your wind-down ritual. The next critical layer here is your actual physical environment. Your bedroom needs to become a sleep sanctuary, a place that is dedicated to nothing but rest.
And there are 4 pillars to a perfect sleep sanctuary. 1, keep it cool. Your body temperature naturally drops to initiate sleep, so a cooler room helps that along. 2, keep it dark, and I mean pitch black. Light is the #1 signal for wakefulness, so blackout curtains are your best friend. 3, keep it quiet. Use earplugs or a white noise machine to drown out any sudden noises. And finally, of course, keep it comfortable. You can't relax if your mattress and pillows are fighting you all night.
So, we've focused a lot on what you do at night. But here's a twist that might surprise you. Great sleep actually begins the moment you wake up in the morning. What you do all day long has a massive impact on how well you sleep later. And here is one of the easiest yet most powerful daytime habits you can build. As soon as you can after you wake up, get outside and get some direct sunlight. I'm not saying you need to stare at the sun, but just 10 or 15 minutes of that morning light on your face works wonders.
So why does this matter so much? Because that morning sunlight acts like a giant on switch for your internal clock. It slams the anchor down on your circadian rhythm, which makes that time for sleep signal later that night so much stronger and more reliable. It's this beautiful, simple cause and effect loop.
Physical activity is another huge one. Moving your body during the day helps build up what scientists call sleep pressure, which basically just means you'll feel more physically tired when bedtime rolls around. The only catch? Try to avoid a super intense, heart-pounding workout right before bed, because that can actually wake you up and have the opposite effect. So let's bring all these pieces together. We have our consistency, our wind-down ritual, our perfect sleep environment, and our supportive daytime habits. But what about those nights? You know the ones I'm talking about. You're doing everything right, you followed all the rules, and you're still just lying there, wide awake. What then? This piece of advice is so important. Lying in bed, getting more and more frustrated and anxious that you're not sleeping, that is the absolute worst thing you can do.
The rule of thumb is, if it's been about 20 minutes and you're not asleep, just get up. Go to another room, keep the lights super dim, and do something boring. Read a book, listen to calm music, until you actually feel sleepy again. Then, and only then, go back to bed.
And that really brings us full circle, back to the most important message of all. None of these things are a one-time fix. Building a great sleep schedule is a long game. Every single day that you stick with this system, you are strengthening that habit. You're making it easier for your body to do what it naturally wants to do. When it comes to sleep, consistency really is your superpower.
Because in the end, what you do tonight has a direct impact on how you feel, how you think, and how you perform tomorrow. Your evening routine isn't just about ending your day, it's about beginning the next one. So, the question I want to leave you with is this: what kind of story do you want to write for yourself tomorrow? Thanks for tuning in.